Hi there, and welcome to Let's Slow Down, a podcast for all of you who feel tired and stressed from this overwhelming world. Here we'll have fun, inspiring conversations about living life on our own terms and explore ways to ease the pace of our modern world, because life really is good when you're relaxed enough to be present for it. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Stolting, and I welcome you to this space where I hope to inspire you to slow down, because life is too short to let it go by in a blur. So take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy the show. Today, I'm thrilled to have Katherine Morua here as a guest. Katherine Morua is an electrical engineer turned social impact entrepreneur. She has spent the last 2 decades helping huge projects happen, from designing and implementing next-generation power systems for utilities, NASA and military applications, to moderating symposiums with presidential appointees. She founded Morua Power and the Morua Power Foundation, whose mission is to build a just and equitable world by connecting communities to power. She launched Power a Nation initiative in support of social impact enterprises to help provide energy infrastructure, revenue-generating opportunities, and educational scholarships for communities worldwide. Katherine's new podcast, Conscious Power, nurtures listeners who are thinking about how to make quantum leaps into their purpose by showing examples of how others have done it and inspiring them to take action to step out of the norm so they can live more joyfully, confidently, and powerfully. She is passionate about coming together to create a massive shift in the world, to amplifying the message of love, unity, and higher consciousness. In her spare time, which I have no idea how she has any of that, given this bio, she loves spending time in nature, dancing, and songwriting. Katherine and I met a few months ago, and we have become fast friends. She is such an interesting, kind, generous, and loving person, and I'm so excited to have you here today, Katherine. Welcome.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me here.
So let's talk about conscious power. Obviously, you are a huge fan of energy, all sorts of energy, right? Electrical energy and the energy that we have within ourselves. So with that being said, can you explain to us what conscious power is?
Sure. So, Conscious Power is a platform that allows society to find their authentic power from a space of awareness, focusing on finding the right information and the right tools to help each other thrive through uncertainty, and also creating change around that and being able to reframe more fully who we really are. We're currently in a space where I think a lot of us are trying to understand what it means to be fully who we are, and we're being called to that. But how do we do that? How do we move in that process of finding out more and more? I think it's a lifelong process, but to have a community we can all be conscious and empowered is really what Conscious Power as a platform is about.
I love that. I love that. And reframing who we are, like you said, I know that I have felt that pull, that feeling like there's more in me, there's something else in me, and it's really hard. You have to dig really deep to listen to that inner voice and figure out what it's even saying. What is it trying to tell you? What signals are you getting? And then even if you can be aware enough to get those signals, what do you do with that? What do we do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Explain.
Yeah. So, we're all in a process. So that's the first thing we need to acknowledge, is that you don't just wake up one day, and for some of us, you wake up and there might be huge epiphanies. That's okay. But what I'm saying is, it is an ever evolving process of our personal evolution. And when we're in that process, how do we thrive? How do we really connect with who we are, even while we're trying to figure out who we are? And so we all have goals, we all have dreams, but how do we make it easier? And how do we really hold each other in a space where we can fulfill that process and move along our process having these amazing conversations with each other about the discoveries that we're having along the way. And then also, how do we ourselves use certain tools to be able to then make it so that we're thriving in that process? And to your question, one of the tools that has really helped me in my process of being aware, of really getting to know myself, is energy work. So, in the process of some things that happen, which I'm sure we'll get into, I got certified in
Mm-hmm.
Reiki and human design, quantum alignment system, quantum human design. And I started really looking at the blueprint. The reason I was drawn to those specific things is because I already felt how people's energies were different. But when I started studying human design, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing your chart. And now I understand this thing that I'm feeling. I got words. I was able to get words for those things I was already experiencing through my very empathic nature about the world around me and the people around me. And so personally, I started using that first to discover who I was, what this template said about me and my life's work, as well as how I communicate, what really grounds me. Not everybody has the same thing. Like some people are more grounded through dancing or, running or whatever it might be. For others, it's surrender. For others, it could be really making sure you're in integrity in every single part of your life. And while those things I just mentioned can be aspects of different parts of who they are, just understanding that when it comes to grounding myself, I need to be in integrity and I need to be grounded or surrendered. It changes the game because now I have words around what that feels like and looks like for me.
It's so interesting. And I love what you said about giving the narrative to it all, to those feelings, giving the language to help you support your direction, right? And I feel like here we are in midlife exploring these ideas where this seems like something every, I don't know, high school student should be getting, right? This is your human design. Go check out these fields as they're going to serve you. You seem like you're made to do these things. Just it seems like it gives so much natural direction.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is fascinating and it could be so helpful, yet I feel like this is such a new idea for many people.
Yeah. And, we discover it, I think, at the time that we need to discover it. So because I really believe we have a lot of agency around how we react to things that happen in our life. And knowing this early on, I think is definitely helpful because it gives you the language and the permission to just be you. But at the same time, for those that are now just discovering it, there's a lot of validation that you can find in hearing those words back to you about, hey, this is who you are. This is the theme that's recurring in your life around health, around the lessons that you're learning in this lifetime. So I think that whenever you discover it, it's the perfect time. And from validation, then you can move on to discover and experiment with the information that you get through human design to be able to say, oh, okay, here we're using this word and this is what it feels like to me. So one thing I didn't know about myself prior was that I am a projector. That's one of the human design types. And as a projector, we all have energy, we all have life force energy, but we're not meant to sustain it in activity in the same way that a lot of the world does. And so what that ends up doing is if we're reflecting back to people this energy, or we're trying to copy what somebody else looks like and they're going, it can deplete us because they might have the ability to sustain that, but we don't. So there's these very interesting ebbs and flows that I've noticed in my life of activity and then rest, and being able to then come back to a place where I can decide how I want to use that energy myself without being influenced by what I'm seeing in the world around me, especially when mostly, the majority of the world is a generator, and they're the ones that do have this sacral aspect defined, which is where that energy comes from. But, projectors, for example, are less than 10% of the population. So just knowing that was so freeing and incredibly helpful. It helped me understand why I had those ebbs and flows. And while as I was younger, I was able to sustain that, I started noticing in my late 30s that I was starting to burn out and I didn't even know it.
Yep. Been there. And like you said, I should note that Katherine did a human design reading for me, and I am also a projector. We have so much in common in this regard. And I felt the same as you, Katherine. I was able to, I don't know, fake it, hang on. Maybe it was just the energy of being younger up until about my mid 30s as well. And then I really hit the wall too. It was like, I can't keep going like this. And as you said, it's very validating to learn these things about ourselves and realize that, okay, this going isn't sustainable for me. It might be sustainable for some people, but it's not for me. And taking that and learning from it and using that to shape our direction and decisions that we make down the road, it's really helpful. And it is validating is a great word. I was fascinated because you did my human design and it was spot on. Katherine was spot on. So there is certainly something to this. If you're a skeptic, there is something to it. And it's like lots of aha moments. And again, I love how you say when we need it, when we know it, it's going to be the right time. But boy, I do wish I learned it sooner.
Yes. Yep.
And this energy work is something new to me in that I, just like you, felt burnt out. And not until I really started to kind of change my thinking, change my whole perspective on everything that we're talking about on life, when I started doing things that were more aligned with who I am, all of a sudden I noticed, I have more energy. This is kind of lifting me up. This is building me up. This is filling my cup, rather than the opposite of feeling so drained all the time. So there is a lot of really valuable information in all of this.
Thank you. And I do want to add that for those which are the majority of the population that are generators and that do have that sacral energy source, definition, I want to say that if you are not aligned with your design, meaning you are responding to things in your environment and you're saying yes to them, even though they may not feel aligned with who you are, that can also lead to burnout. So we're not all exempt from it. We have to really still be aligned. And as life continues to show us more and more of who we are and make decisions according to our design, then we can really be more and more aligned, and the generators can continue to use that energy to create this beautiful world. And the projectors can continue to guide and be asked for, and invited into conversations like these, where we're talking about how do we really protect and empower ourselves and the energy that we've been given in this life to do the thing that not just fulfills us, but at the end of the day also ultimately helps our community.
Yes. Protect and empower, because we all have the energy in us, right? It's just a matter of tapping into it and being able to use it in that way, in that empowering way. In your process of learning all of these things, as you said, you were burnt out. So when you got to that low point where you felt really burnt out and depleted, is that when you started learning all of this human design and the Reiki and everything? Is that what piqued your interest in all of this?
So I started before then, but it was definitely kind of like a side informational experience. Okay, this is so interesting. Okay, let me check this out. Let me figure that out. So it wasn't until I got COVID and a couple months or just 2 weeks after it was completely out of my system, I realized that I just had no energy. And my nervous system, something got triggered in that specific situation where now I'm getting into the nitty-gritty of really what happened. Because it wasn't just that, now I feel anxious and I'm having panic attacks. It was, I suddenly went from, I'm going and there is no stopping me. I'm working 18-hour days because I was checking in on myself and I was saying, I'm still having fun. So I don't need to stop because I'm having fun doing this thing. And once I got COVID and had that happen where I had no energy, something happened one of those days and I went into complete shock and into a panic attack. And after that, I didn't know what was happening. First of all, I had never had that happen to me. I went to the hospital. Somebody mentioned it and I was like, I think that's what's happening to me. And
oh my gosh,
it was
scary.
really scary. And because of that, and also what started happening with all kinds of systems in my body just started acting up. It was like my nervous system was on edge, and then all these things were happening. I had heart palpitations, and I had this, and I had that, and it was just all the systems were just calling out and alarming and calling for my attention. And so when that happened, I honestly didn't know what to do. I didn't know the coping mechanisms, of like, just think positive thoughts or just do this thing. None of that worked. Like, I had been working on mindset stuff for a long time. And suddenly all the mindset stuff just didn't work. Not even some of the inner child work that I had done was working in this situation because it was just so heightened, and I wanted to run away from it consciously. And that
Sure. I think that's probably the natural reaction, right?
like,
Try to just hide from it.
And I was like, what is happening? What is happening? And it turned out, as I worked with therapy and got into, as I said, Reiki and human design and emotional freedom techniques to help move the energy, I started realizing that I felt out of control at some point in my childhood. And that same situation had gotten reflected when I didn't have the ability or the energy to push through. And I had really bad mental fog. Really, like, I couldn't write my name. That's how bad it was. Somebody asked me and I couldn't spell it. It was like I couldn't access the thoughts. And so all of those things together just put me in a situation that felt familiar to my body. And it was like the floodgates open for those big, intense emotions that had gotten stuck in my body to heal. And when that happened, and I was open and ready to heal that, and I started, instead of running away, I had to practice just staying in it, even when it felt horrible. I just had to stay in it and bring all of my awareness, all of my consciousness into this very moment. Sometimes we don't realize, and in that moment I realized that we split our attention in so many directions. It could be as simple as, what am I doing tomorrow? Is my child okay? Is this happening? Is that happening? Like, we don't think about it, and we split our attention.
Right.
And in those moments when I needed every single ounce of my being to be present, I remember getting into those patterns where I was thinking about, how am I going to do this? What's going to happen? What happens if this happens again? That's still being in the future. Worry is about being in the future. You're not in the present. And by not being in the present, then that's what was actually triggering a lot of it. I was running away. And so when I started to just sit with it, I would just sit, and sometimes I had to breathe really deeply. Sometimes I had to cry. Sometimes I had to kick and scream and just let out whatever it was that was ready and coming up for me as the adult to hold space for that part of me that needed it. And I do want to say, there's nothing that I would have considered traumatic with a big T, or even didn't even think of it as a little t, trauma when I was little. But the way I interpreted certain situations when I wasn't asked for an opinion about something, or I was in a car and I couldn't get out and I felt nauseous, and I was picking up on the energy of my mom worried and caring for me, and all these things happening, and not knowing that somebody would say, hey, something's going on with your occipital lobe, and this is why you're dizzy, and I know it feels like you're about to die, but you're not.
Right.
I am here.
But at the time, especially as a child, like that reassurance, you don't know what's happening. It's super
Yeah.
scary. And you probably just tried to like, okay, just get through it.
Yeah, I was
Just
quiet.
bury this, right? And just move
Exactly.
on.
The
Yeah.
interesting thing
Yeah.
is, and it was showing up when it would happen where I had brain fog and I couldn't think and I had no energy and I felt like I was going to die. I remember it was like there was a moment when I went right back to that place and it felt exactly the same. Like when I was in the car in the middle of the mountains and we couldn't stop. And the first thing I thought of when I
Wow.
saw myself in that situation was I was quiet. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't telling my mom I'm scared. Like I was a child. I didn't know how to communicate those feelings in that moment. And so instead of letting it out, they got stuck inside my body and they were ready to show up and to heal. And then it got attached to other things and other things were ready to heal. But I want to say, even if you had the most beautiful childhood, I would say that, and my parents were incredible and they are incredible, but it can still happen, right? Because we encode information in different ways and our parents are doing the best that they can. And there's no
Yeah.
way you can mess
Sure.
it up, because if that happened, that was a lesson that I could now bring to this present day to help maybe other people go through that in a different way.
And it's so helpful. This information, they say knowledge is
Mm-hmm.
power, right? It's another form of energy. And just knowing this and learning from it, teaching
Mm-hmm.
others. And that's something that I've learned with these things of our past and these feelings and I think the generation that we grew up in, a lot of, again, even with the most well-intentioned, loving parents and adults in our lives, it was very much a society and a culture of like, well, just get over it. You'll be fine. Just keep going. Suck it up. You're going to be okay. Just move on. And we did do a lot of burying and just, okay, put your chin up, take the one foot in front of the other, just keep going. But after a while, it is going to catch up to you at some point. And these feelings that we had and these experiences, especially the ones that were really, quote unquote traumatic, they manifest in us and they're going to be there. It's very toxic. It's probably part of the reason why there are a lot of mental health issues now, because a lot of things did just sort of get pushed down really
Mm-hmm.
deep and are going to show up at some point, probably when we are least expecting it, and just could be almost out of the blue, where something happens that, like you said, took you right back to that moment where you were in that car and you had those scary feelings.
Yeah. And I wanted to
Yeah.
comment on what you said about it could come up at any time. I think that that's true. And also, it can inform us. What happened with me, it has informed me about how to really be there and sit with what is happening in the moment, as little as it might be. If it's a frustration, if it's grief for a lifestyle that you had that you don't have, whatever it is, sitting with it, acknowledging it with your mind is one thing, but being with that feeling in your body and allowing it to process and work its way through in the moment is the most proactive thing that you can do so that things don't sneak up on you, right? And again, we don't control that.
Right.
And I think it's beyond my pay grade to tell you how the universe works ultimately, and what will happen when in your life and all those things. But I do want to encourage people to sit in their feelings and their emotions, not give power to them in a way that they take control, but to be an adult. And as an adult, just because you allow a child to kick and scream doesn't mean that now they're the ones that are going to drive the car, right? It just means you're
Yep.
being there for them, for their heart, so that they can experience. For a child, if you promise them ice cream and you don't give them ice cream, those are big emotions, right? Of disappointment,
Yep.
of whatever it might be. Like those, they're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it that way. And when we feel those raw, intense emotions come up, sometimes it's things that from when we were smaller.
And something I was thinking of when you were just talking was not just acknowledging it, but sitting with it and letting it process, letting it pass, right? Letting it come through us. It doesn't have to define us. We don't have to give it too much power, but we do have to acknowledge that that's how we're feeling at the moment. And you said even the little things. And I believe this is where the slowing down piece is so important, because if we are rushing and just constantly distracted and have a million things on our mind all the time, we are not present enough to notice the little things. And that's when they can build up, because it could be a little thing that, yeah, you could get through it, you could kind of blow it off, but enough of those little things happening that aren't acknowledged and aren't sat with for a few, even if it's just a few minutes, they are going to turn into something huge. And we could either deal with it as we go and like you're saying, learn from it, use it as a growth opportunity, use it to make that next decision, make it the right one for us to serve us better. Or we could ignore it. And then at some point, it's coming back and we're going to pay that price. How did learning all of these things, and you got COVID, you had a really rough recovery. So how did slowing down and facing all of this and really acknowledging it and sitting with it, how did it help you and your life transform into what it is now?
Not being able to work for 3 months at all. Not being able to even watch a video. It was too much stimulus. I couldn't read anything. It was like I was locked in this world. And what that taught me after not having that for 3 months is that, first of all, my business was fine.
Which is amazing. I mean, you own your own company and it survived. You took 3 months to work on yourself and it was
shout
okay.
out to my team, because that also really showed me how important it is to surround yourself with people that are compassionate and understand, and that in moments like that can support you. And so my team was incredible that they were able to take that on. And also that year, we made more than we had ever made in revenue. So slowing down can really produce a lot, because what also came out of that is when I was working, as I started to reintegrate into the workforce, I couldn't just go through my calendar and do every single meeting and, okay, I'm done at the end. And you know what? I think I want to finish this last thing and I'm going to go ahead and do it. It changed from that to I'm in a meeting and I'm sending signals to myself, either by touching the side of my leg or doing specific pressure points, acupuncture points that I learned through my certification in emotional freedom technique. And I would just do that during the call. And I would tell parts of me, hey, listen, I am here. My mind might be engaged in something that we're figuring out in this moment that can also feel like it's about the future because we're planning or we're doing whatever. But I'm right here. I'm listening. What do you need? And I started asking myself those questions. Do you need water? Do you need food? Do you need me to stop? And I made a commitment to myself that if I asked that question internally and I got, I need to stop, or you need to stop, then I actually would tell myself, I would let go of all of the things in my mind that I thought, oh, I'm supposed to be here. It's me. I'm supposed to do it. No. I would let go mentally of the energy attached to those responsibilities. And I would make it plain and clear that whatever that inner part of my heart needed, I was going to drop everything and show up for her. So work looked very different. And what that means is I was slowing down to listen to the inner dialogue. And I continued, and as my ability to work a little longer, hold conversation a little longer, started to increase, I made sure I filled my days. I would open the Headspace app in the morning. First thing I would listen to were videos that helped to ground me on impermanence and how everything at the end of the day changes. And there's a grounding quality to that, just to know, like, even this that I'm going through is going to go away at some point. And
you're going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay. Yeah. And then I would put on my calendar Headspace time and I would do meditations. And at night, I would do Reiki on myself every single night. Whereas before I would have been like, oh yeah, maybe I'll do it. Okay, right? Breaking on myself every night. That's actually what helped bring back my circadian rhythms, because that's one of the things that happened. I couldn't fall asleep, and I had never in my life had that issue before COVID. It was a whole new definition to doing life. I was going to really prioritize my body first and listen to what my heart needed and be in the world that way versus trying to achieve something that's somewhere out there. It's more about what's already here inside of me and in my present moment than what's out there for me to find.
That is very powerful. I love that. And there's so much that is right here that's in us, all this energy and life force that's in us that we, I don't know if it's take for granted or just so distracted that we don't recognize it. We don't harness it. We don't get to benefit from it. And I'm hearing from you that by slowing down, listening to that inner dialogue, scheduling the time for what you needed, whether it was the rest, the hydration, the meditation, resetting your circadian rhythm. Because if you can't sleep, you're not going to be able to do anything. So making those things the priority sounds like not only did you feel physically and emotionally so much healthier and stronger and just better overall, but it sounds like your company started to really thrive even more. It sounds like it was thriving always, but it sounds like your company continued to have success. And so you're telling me that it's possible to take care of ourselves and also be a successful entrepreneur and business owner and do all of those things by taking care of yourself.
Exactly. It's like setting a template and something called my non-negotiables and building your life around that instead of the other way around.
Which I would argue that most people are the other way around, right? That is what you're describing is not the path that is typically taken. But those non-negotiables, man, they're important. And we have to get our priorities straight to decide what those non-negotiables are going to be in our life.
Yeah. And I want to be completely transparent. After I started getting my energy back and I started traveling and I started doing my thing, things would creep up. How am I going to actually live this life with more energy? And I had to be intentional about not falling back into the same patterns and remembering the lessons that I learned. We have 24 hours in the day. Out of the 24 hours, I need to sleep 8. And if I want to really take time to be in nature, then that's at least 1 hour of looking out the window, walking in nature, rolling in the grass, whatever it is that you like. And then I was like, okay, if I want to really be intentional about eating, instead of I'm eating and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that while I'm eating, I'm reading. No, if I'm doing exactly what I'm doing, which is eating, and I'm in this moment, that means I will take 1 hour per meal to just sit and eat. Not sit and distract myself, but treat eating like a meditation. Being grateful for the flavors that I can taste. Be grateful for how much it took for someone to go and cut all of the lettuce, package it, and then ship it and make it available to me so that I could put it on my plate and make something delicious with it.
Did you know that by eating mindfully, your body actually absorbs more nutrients? I just learned that, and I thought that was fascinating because I had no idea that the state of our mind while we're eating could affect that, but it makes sense. I mean, our body needs the time to absorb the nutrients, right? And the space to do it. And if we're just pushing, it can't. Our bodies are incredible. They're designed so perfectly if we allow them to work the way they're supposed to. And we kind of get in I know I get my own way a lot, and I prevent it from doing a lot of the miraculous things that it's capable of.
It's so true. And I had to learn to trust my body too.
Sure.
Yeah, that when it's telling me something, I need to listen, and that I can also train my body so that and it's not really my body, but train my heart and my emotions to know that, hey, if you're feeling tense, there's a thought that's showing up and there's some information attached to it. So I just want to let you know, mind, body, soul, all of me, that whenever something doesn't feel right, you can just tell me. And it doesn't have to show in my body as something hurting. That also takes a lot of mindfulness to stop and slow down.
But it does.
to-
Yep.
Long enough to realize that the tense back or shoulders, or how we sit in our desk, or if we tense up our legs, those little cues can actually be information that helps us to then connect and say, hey, please tell me, what is that my body's trying to communicate with me at this moment? Just leave some space to ask and you'll hear an answer. Yeah.
Yep. So interesting. So fascinating. I'm just thinking of the little baby. The baby recognizes all the cues, right? The hunger cue, the tired, and they don't know how to speak yet, but they can express it in other ways. And it's almost like as we grow and get older, we just start ignoring all of those things. So we have to sort of tap into that. And it's like when we're born, we already have all this information and we're pretty capable of tapping into it. And then we get older and we get much older and start adulting, and it's like all out the window. And all of this stuff is so natural and so makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
Your neck is tense, your back is tense. Okay, do something about it. Take a break. Don't just push through. We don't get a medal and a gold star for pushing through and then feeling like garbage. We have to just stop doing that.
Yeah. And I love your example of the baby, because it's true. We were very vocal about what we needed, and at some point we got into our head and we prioritized that. And it's time to just be aware that there has to be a balance. We're here to be in our bodies and to experience the world around us through our bodies, not just through our brain and figuring things out. That can also lead to burnout. Just using your head or your brain in a very specific way all the time. You have to diversify it. You have to connect with nature. Notice if you're tense or if you're even squinting, right? So all of those are different cues that we can start to learn to listen. And the more we listen, the more information we're going to keep getting.
It's amazing. And Katherine, you work with people. You wear so many different hats, but you work with people in all of these areas as well, right? Why don't you let everybody know how they can learn more about this, how they can find you, certainly how they can find the podcast.
Yeah, so I started as an electrical engineer and I've been in the power industry for over 20 years. So we have a branch of Morua Power that's dedicated to supporting underrepresented communities that want to use alternative energy as a way to bring light, i.e. visibility, to the community, and also empowerment through helping with vocational training and really building a beautiful program to help support that community. And also, because of the work that I do and because my clients are leaders in their communities and their countries, I've developed a branch specifically focused on helping leaders and also just people alike. If you're a mother or if you're a person in a home, like everybody now is being allocated, I think, a certain sense of leadership, and helping you really thrive through that process of reconnecting with your body, understanding your own energetic blueprint. Hence, being an electrical engineer, being empathic, feeling all kinds of things energetically in my environment, and then tying that with human design, Reiki, and quantum alignment system, which is using emotional freedom techniques to help move big pieces of emotional information and help you really feel into it and instead of ignoring it. And so I've been working with clients to help them move through this process in a way that's so much more integral to who they are, and to help them understand sometimes knowledge of understanding your blueprint is all that you need. And sometimes you need the support energetically to help clear blockages that happen because of the way that we've chosen to live our lives, or ways or places in our life where we haven't been authentic. And so helping to remove that and helping to really create quantum leaps into the next level of whatever it is you want to do. And I would encourage you, because we are all in this place where we're discovering our next phase for our lives, whether it's a new job or a new environment that you're living in or a new situation around you relationally, this work can really help you to integrate deeper into who you are and understand what your non-negotiables are so that you can move on so much more empowered. And the podcast is also helping support you in that way by providing information that can help you to really understand and look into different technologies and modalities to help you move through with so much more peace and joy. And we actually just had Anne-Marie on the podcast. I'm so excited.
Yay, it was a lot of fun. Please, everyone, go check it out. It's a great conversation.
Yes, it's so good. So much wisdom on slowing down. And I love the example that you give about how you've been able to do it with your family, and you've really followed your intuition to guide you into that, and all of the incredible miracles that happen as a result. So can't wait for people to hear your story.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for sharing yours today and all of this really interesting information that I think might be new to a lot of people. So learning about what's out there, learning about how you can just tap into yourself better, empower yourself. It's going to help you and it's going to help everybody around you. And that is the goal, right? To make this place better for everyone and to feel good while we're doing it.
Exactly. Yep. And if you want support, if you want to reach out to me, the best way to do it is through Instagram at Live Conscious Power. And feel free to send me a private message or join the conversation, and we're happy to have you.
And I'll make sure I link all of this stuff in the show notes so that you can find Katherine's podcast, you can find her. Definitely check it all out because it's very interesting. It's a lot of fun. Great conversations there. So Katherine, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of this really magical information with us.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So honored to be here, and can't wait for everyone to find you and to join that community of slowing down, because we all definitely need it.
Yes, we sure do. We'll work on it together, guys. We'll get there. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and have been inspired to slow down and start living life at your own pace. As a brand new podcast, your listener voice matters. If Let's Slow Down is resonating with you, please take a minute to leave a review and rate us. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen and share it with friends. Remember, this is a process, so go easy on yourself. Be gentle and take all the space you need to thrive, because the world needs you to be at your best, to love and serve others and yourself.